Chris, firstly, your reflections overall on what can only be described as an outstanding season.
Well, the reflections are certainly mostly good. Starting the season in a very good way. We'd had a good pre-season, so I think there were signs that we could possibly start the season really well. Of course, a home game in front of the cameras, of course, as a first game, which is always a good opener. But probably the game that sticks in my mind in that very early period was the away game at Ipswich. I think the fact that it was away from home and arguably around that period of time, it was one of our best performances and probably one we should have won a little bit more comfortably. But of course, it was during a good run, an outstanding run, I think, by any level, I think, in any league, and one that perhaps was unexpected. But I think once we got into a rhythm of games and we weren't losing games, I think there became a greater desire to not lose games. And probably on reflection, when you look back at some of them draws, you know, they would have made the difference, I think, if we'd turned them into wins. But I think that's what formulated a real good spirit amongst the group and a real good togetherness amongst the group. I think, of course, going into a Christmas period, January, players that we recruited in January, and perhaps even just going back on the start of the season, I think we're delighted the way that with what we recruited in the summer, and I think that allowed us to have a good start. Recruited well again, I think, in January. Then having that little bit of a dip, and probably at that stage, most people would have felt that we might have found it difficult to come out of that one, and that can happen. But certainly the players showed enough real desire to want to come out of that dip, go again and have a real good run through to the end of the season. The changes in the season were, I think, from a January onwards, we certainly were a side that looked capable of scoring more goals and did score more goals. I think the introduction of the two wide players in Scallock and Knockhart's delivery, I think, helped that for sure. But also, looking back on the season, the injuries that we managed to cope with, obviously Gaetan having the operation, Rossini coming in that position and doing well, then getting injured, Solly Marsh, Uwe. So these are injuries. Kasinga that has started so well, probably as good as he started the season. Sam Baldock. So it's probably the ability to better cope and come through them injuries, and of course to finish the season as strong as we did, and ultimately the disappointment at the end.
When you look at the 46 games, it's hard to find a bad performance amongst it.
So I'm probably saying something that it's not that I haven't said before. Probably our two poorest performances I felt that we reacted great from were Rotherham away, a 2-0 defeat, where we were able to bounce back from that and get a great result at Blackburn, and the Cardiff result, Cardiff away, which I think was out of the blue. Nobody expected it, and it wasn't even if we started the game that poorly, but we conceded poor goals and obviously one of our biggest defeats. But we then turned that around by getting a very good win after that one. So after both them defeats, which were probably our poorest performances of the season, we reacted well and won both of them games. And I think that was the difference between, you know, how we were perhaps last season and the difference in this season.
Does that give you hope going into next season, that you can almost go into pre-season with that group of players, that togetherness, the players you brought in January, the players that you brought in last summer, all here 1 year down the line bedded in? Does that give you a sort of sense of more optimism than perhaps this time 12 months
ago?
Well,
I think you always have to be optimistic. I think the facts are that I think it will be harder next season. I think the challenge will be harder, particularly with the three teams that are coming down and the size of the clubs that are coming down, I think this league has become even more competitive. As we found out from the large majority of our games and how tight the majority of our games, I think there'll be more expectation on us come next season. But we've got to make sure that we're ready for the challenge, and it just means a little bit of a different starting position. You know, we started this season with perhaps not too much expectation of achieving promotion, where I think that will be different come next season. But that's the sort of challenge that you want, and that's the only thing that changes how people see and the sort of the pressure that you want to put on yourselves. But we need to make sure that we start the season with a good enough squad and a strong enough mentality that we can be challenging again.
Do you welcome that pressure, or is it a case of people being realistic? They've got to look at the teams coming down, the money that some clubs in the Championship have that perhaps you haven't got at your disposal, and tempering those expectations a little bit and perhaps being a little bit more realistic in those expectations, or is it a case of, yeah, we go again?
No, I think it's both. You know, but what are the facts is that, you know, there will be bigger teams than us in this division. There will be bigger spenders than us in this division, and that's not only, you know, the 3 teams coming down. That's what the facts are. But I know about momentum, and I know the mentality of people in the game, and they will look at this season and see how well we fared this season, and we'll want some of the same. And I think you have to accept that's just how it is, and that's how the pressure is. You know, what we have managed to do without being one of the big spenders in this division, we have managed to finish in the top 3, and you know, narrowly miss out on, you know, an opportunity to get to the final, to get promotion. So we've been close, and so, you know, that's the challenge for next season. As I said, I do think it will be tougher next year with the way that the division is, the teams that have done well and the ones that are coming down. But I think you've got to welcome that type of challenge.
The support you've had this season, you've commented on many times, has been outstanding, particularly in that second leg of that playoff final. The fans got a role to play again, I guess.
Yeah, yes, they do. And they have been outstanding all season, and I don't think they'll mind me saying, particularly away from home, because where this club is located, then, you know, most away games are going to be longer trips. So it's not a question of appreciating the supporters that travel away from home more, but you know, it's a bigger deal for them to do that, and it's more uncomfortable for them to do that. They've got to take either time off work, they're travelling home very late at night, and so I think probably taking that into consideration, it's why we feel so much about those that travel away. The Amex has been brilliant this year, and I know that we've tried our best to give our supporters at the Amex enough to cheer about and enough to get behind the team. But they've been exceptional all season, and I think no more than the second leg of the playoffs, where, you know, it's as good an atmosphere as I've seen at the Amex at any stage, either watching a game or, you know, being part of a game, and the fact that when the game had finished, such a high percentage of the supporters were still there to sort of cheer on the team, I think shows both ways. I think, one, what they felt of the performance and what the team have given, but they also knew that the players would want them to be there to show their gratitude to them.
And the together's been the theme of the season. How do you build on that going into next season? I guess that is really crucial, to have that sort of bond between the players and the fans, and the club and the fans going into next season, to you know, provide the foundations for a challenge.
Well, I think that's been there all season, and you know, there have also been things out of our control, that have happened, of course, around the club, and ensure them that I think have made that bond even closer this season. But this is, and we are a particular type club. You know, our support base is I know far and wide, but you know, very local. And you know, generally, if you're in the area, you're a Brighton supporter. So I think it's really important that you do have that feel with the local community. I think the chairman, Paul Barber, and his club do that very, very well, and include the supporters in the community in most things that we do, and I think they do that very well. So that's something that will continue and must continue. We always know there's a better feel. You know, if we talk about togetherness, there's always a better feel when things are going well. Well, you know, we had a disaster this season, which is something, of course, that didn't go well, and if anything, it brought the community and the club even closer together. So I think it's something that has to be important. We always have to appreciate what the community means to this club and what the support means to this club.
And the summer, obviously, I'm sure you'll get a well-earned and well-deserved break. But what does the summer hold in store for you personally, Chris?
Well, you'll take time away on a holiday, but you know, apart from that, we played in the second leg of the playoff, of course, at the Amex, and after getting over the disappointment of that, come the next day, you know, we're very much thinking about next season and planning for the summer. There are, of course, players that are out of contract. We have a recruitment department and a process that's ongoing, and you know, decisions are being made and will be made in which areas that we need to strengthen and bring in, who them individuals are, can we get them individuals, and so although it's something that's continuous over a season, of course it steps up pace the moment we know where we are, and of course we know we're going to be a championship club next season, and as I say, the process continues and steps up a gear, as from that day after the Sheffield Wednesday game.
Not looking for names, but do you have it sort of clear in your mind where you want to focus that recruitment across the summer, and in terms of where you'd like to strengthen the squad?
Yes, we know the areas. I mean, what hopefully will be in our favour this summer is that we brought in 9 players last summer. We recruited, of course, in the January, obviously in Skalak and Knockhart, and of course around that we also had loan players that we brought in. James Wilson came in, Steve Sidwell came in, Van La Parra came in. So these are loan players that came in. So that we're conscious of the areas that yes, we would like to strengthen and cover. I am aware of, but as I said, hopefully and thankfully that recruitment process as regards numbers won't be as big as what it had to be last summer.
And no loan system available to you in terms of those short-term loans this season. I guess you'll have to plan for that eventuality as well, given the situation you faced at Christmas with the injury crisis. I guess it'll mean some plans in place with that in mind.
I think there has to be. I think every club has to think about that, and you know, maybe structure their approach just that little bit different. And I think possibly some clubs that might have been keen to send some players maybe out on loan, you know, as we have done with Jake Forster-Caskey and Rowan Ince, Chris O'Grady. These players that, of course, that we've sent out on loan. You know, some clubs might be in a position where, you know, they might have to think twice about that. So we'd be no different. That on anything that we felt or we decided we were going to bring in on loan, then them decisions have to be made earlier, because of course now we can't bring them in on an emergency basis.
And looking ahead to pre-season, it's a few weeks away yet, but I'm sure they'll whistle by pretty quickly for everybody concerned. Ready to go, looking forward to the challenge, relishing it.
Yes.
Thinking about it already?
Yeah, I think you have to be, and generally what happens is that the summer tends to go fairly quickly. By the time that the pre-season comes around, everybody's looking forward to it. One thing the players will always say is that that they like the break, but by the time the end of that break comes and they're back to pre-season, that they are very much ready, and we have to be, because everybody's trying to get a head start on each other. I can remember a period of time where generally a pre-season program would have been 5 weeks, and then that over the years that length has got sort of longer and longer, 6 weeks, some 6.5, and the only reason that is because everybody almost wants to get a head start, almost wants to feel that they're more prepared than others. So it's a big period, pre-season, and it sets you up for the start of the season. Fortunately for us, our last pre-season set us up for a very good start. So we're going to have to make sure that we are ready, and you always hope that in that pre-season that you don't pick up injuries, and you're able to do the work that you want to do for that start of the season. But no, by the time it comes round, you are very focused and very motivated and very ready.
And finally, a word on the chairman. I know you've had a few meetings with him already since the second leg of the playoff final, but obviously you must be disappointed for him as much as for yourself.
If anything, I'd be probably more disappointed for the chairman. One thing I've learnt about him in the period of time that I've been here, which I knew anyway, but what I've learnt is that he is not only the chairman of this football club and financed wonderful stadium, wonderful training facility here, but he's a mad Brighton supporter. Born and bred in the area, supported him since he was a child. The family background, the family involvement in the club, and if anything, he would have been more devastated than anybody, and that I can respect, and that I can see. But I think he's very proud of what the group of players have done. Because I think what he feels that they have done is, this is his club. He wants to hear good things about this club, and I think that the way that people have spoke about the performances that the players have put in, I think has made him feel very proud, and he wants that to continue.